Straightforward Seattle news coverage. Cairo 7 Eyewitness News starts right now.
Tears for a city torn apart by a school shooting.
We have 5 down.
The gunman, the school's homecoming prince. New tonight what he said minutes before the rampage.
And then he said, hold on. And I was like, no, dude, I'm hungry.
And new details about the victims. The unsuspecting hero.
Either he tried to reload or try to shoot her, and then she stopped him.
And tonight, more on the possible motive. Cairo 7 is committed to bringing you every detail on this rapidly developing story.
And that certainly continues now at 11 o'clock. Team coverage as families and police piece together what led up to this violence. And we begin with Graham Johnson with the latest on the investigation. Graham.
Police called a news conference here 2 hours ago, but revealed no new details. Right now, some 12 hours after the shooting, they continue to carefully process the crime scene. Tonight, we were outside Marysville Pilchuck High School as 2 vehicles from the Snohomish County Medical Examiner's Office arrived to take away the bodies of 14-year-old Jalen Freiberg and one of his female victims. We watched as Brenda Hines left the first bouquet of flowers at the school.
It's just heartbreaking.
Jalen Freiberg's relatives identified the freshman as the shooter, and here are the faces of his victims. 14-year-old Shaylee Chuckle-Naskett, 15-year-old Andrew Freiberg, 14-year-old Nate Hatch, and 2 girls, both 14 years old.
All of a sudden, we just heard like 5 gunshots go off, and everybody was like, run, run.
A student said a teacher grabbed Freiberg's arm, and Freiberg was killed when he shot himself in the neck during the struggle. Police say the .40 caliber Beretta was legally purchased, but they won't answer our questions about who owned it or how the shooter got it.
That's all part of the investigation. We just don't have the details to release yet.
Classmates recently voted Freiberg homecoming prince. Sources close to him tell Cairo 7 the shooting was sparked by a breakup with a girl. That's one of many details police have not confirmed.
So there's still a lot of work to do. We want to make sure that we do this right. We want to make sure that we have all of the right answers.
Crime scene investigators hope to finish their work at the school by 4 a.m. The Snohomish County Sheriff's Office says it will have an update for us about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Live in Marysville, Graham Johnson, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Graham. Well, again, 4 people, 4 teenagers, are still in the hospital tonight, all critically injured. Deborah Horn is at Harborview in Seattle, where the 2 male victims are.
And Henry Rossoff is live right now in Everett. That is where the 2 female students are being treated. What's the latest, Henry?
Doctors here at Providence say they took several hours to try and stop bleeding from the head and swelling of the face. Because of that, it took them quite a while to even identify the 2 girls that were sent here. Late tonight, we spoke with a family member of one of the 2 girls.
There's a whole lot of family up there that's in sorrow.
Leanne Enoch is Marysville Pilchuck student Shaylee Chuckle-Naskett's cousin. Enoch says Chuckle-Naskett was shot in the head from point-blank range. The teenager is now laying in a hospital bed, drifting in and out of consciousness.
And I seen parts of her face was covered.
That may explain why earlier in the day, Chuckle-Naskett's uncle told us.
She got shot in the head. She's not going to make it. So I better get up there.
I can reassure them that they will get no better care than we can give them here.
But hospital doctors say it's too soon to tell if Chuckle-Naskett and the other teenager at Providence will pull through. Both remain in critical condition, and right now they're being watched very carefully.
The nursing staff in the ICU will be doing frequent, more than hourly, neurologic checks to see for movement, what type of movement, seizure activity, those kinds of things.
They need love and prayers, and our community needs a lot of it right now.
The next medical update for these 2 teenagers will be 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We will bring you that development as soon as it's available to us. Live at Providence in Everett, Henry Rossoff, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Henry, best case scenario, it will be a long, rough road to recovery for them.
Well, now we want to check in with Deborah Horn. She is at Harborview Medical Center, where 2 victims, both cousins of the shooter, are being treated. Deborah.
Both, Angela, are also in intensive care here at Harborview Medical Center, but it wasn't until late today that we realized this is truly a family tragedy because they and the shooter are related. We were here here as 14-year-old Nate Hatch arrived at Harborview Medical Center just before noon. In serious condition, a bullet went right through his jaw. He was the first victim from the horrific shooting brought to Harborview. Then 3 hours later, 15-year-old Andrew Freiberg arrived too, in critical condition with a gunshot wound to his head. A sheet was used to block our view. But it wasn't until just after 6 Friday night.
One big Freiberg family. That's the ones that got shot.
When we talked to Nate's grandfather in the lobby of Harborview, that we finally learned their connection to each other and the shooter, Jalen Freiberg.
All three of them are cousins, and they live right close to each other, and they're just really buds. All three of them.
In fact, Don Hatch, a Tulalip tribal elder, said all three were sitting at lunch at Marysville Pilchuck High School just before Jalen opened fire. Hatch, too, was at a loss to explain why their cousin would turn on them.
I don't see any bullying. I don't see any hatred or nothing out there that happened that caused this thing. You know, just things that happened. And I can't say why.
I asked if he can forgive his young cousin for what he has done.
Oh, geez, tremendously. God wants me to do that.
Indeed, Don Hatch said he planned to tell his cousin, Jalen's grandfather, tonight that he does forgive him. And he says he also wants to gather the tribal elders so that they can, quote, find out how we can do a better job with our children. As for Freiberg and Hatch, both of them are expected to be in intensive care at least overnight and undoubtedly longer. Live at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, Deborah Horn, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
And prayers going out to that family tonight, Deborah. Well, tonight, Cairo 7 obtained the emergency dispatch recordings, and for the first time at 11 o'clock, we are hearing the very first call and the dramatic moments as officers arrived on that scene.
Possible shooting at the high school, the cafeteria.
Well, it is confirmed. We have a shooter. We have 5 down.
Ocean 12 advising active shooter.
It out for all county agencies. Where's your shooter, Chris? We are all in the cafeteria.
Is the shooter down?
Affirmative.
Shooter is down.
And because of such a coordinated effort from those dispatchers, victims were on their way to the hospital within just minutes of the first shot. Here's a timeline of the tragedy. At 10:39, the first calls came into 911. 2 minutes later, a school resource officer arrives on the scene. At 10:43, officers confirm that Jalen Freiberg was down after shooting himself. 6 minutes later, the first ambulance arrived, and the full SWAT team was on scene within 21 minutes of dispatch. Cairo 7's Nick McGurk has been digging into Freiberg's past today.
And Nick, you spoke to a friend of his who has a stunning story and had known him for years.
He spoke with Jalen Freiberg just before lunch this morning, no doubt one of the last people to speak with the suspected shooter before that student opened fire.
I said, I'm going to go get something to eat. He just said, hold on. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird because he never says that.
Austin Garcia says his longtime friend Jalen Freiberg tried to get him to hold on just as Garcia was going in to get lunch this morning, warning Garcia not to go into the cafeteria.
And I was like, no, dude, I'm hungry.
Garcia says he walked into the cafeteria, and 2 minutes later, he heard the gunshots.
I just turned around real quick, and I saw a bunch of people going down and gunshots, and I just ran.
The shooter, Garcia says, is the same Jalen Freiberg seen in this video from last week.
He just walked down. He was just super happy.
Cheerleader Selena Tyler remembers Freiberg smiling after being voted homecoming prince by his fellow freshmen. But posts on Freiberg's Twitter page show he was angry and friends say heartbroken. That broke me, he wrote a few days ago. And yesterday he tweeted, it won't last. It'll never last.
What could have led to this, and no one has an answer.
Freiberg's CrossFit coach and Tulalip Tribes member Caleb Wood says a text message this morning is all the warning those closest to him had.
He sent a text message to his family and everyone asking them to do certain things for him after he's gone. And it happened, I think he sent that right before he did what he did.
Not only was Freiberg an athlete, he was also very involved with the tribes. We are live tonight outside Marysville Pilchuck High School. Nick McGurk, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
And students were slowly evacuated from Marysville Pilchuck after the shooting, and then they were taken by bus. They were shuttled over to Schultes Gospel Hall. That's about a mile away. They were reunited with their parents there, and that's where so many of them absolutely dissolved in the arms of their dads, their moms, their loved ones. Lots of hugs, lots of tears here throughout the afternoon. And that is also where Cairo 7's Natasha Chen has been all day.
And Natasha, this is where you heard some harrowing stories from some of the students who experienced what it was like inside,
including eyewitness accounts of how one teacher jumped in to prevent this tragedy from becoming any worse. This church parking lot is where students were finally safe. Safe to hug each other, safe to find their parents, and safe to start telling each other what they saw.
It's a gun, run, go, go.
I heard the guns and I turned around and he's just like pulling it and shooting everyone, and there's blood everywhere, and some got on other girls' faces and stuff.
While most students ran for it or hunkered down silently in classrooms with their teachers, Eric Cervantes froze right next to the lunch table where classmates lay bleeding. He called 911 and saw this teacher, Megan Silverberger, suddenly run toward the shooter.
She grabs his arm, like a hand on hand. It happens like in seconds.
He said one more shot fired, this time hitting the gunman's neck. The Marysville Education Association president, who taught at Marysville Pilchuck High School for 20 years, said Silverberger just started her first semester teaching social studies.
I think your classic first-year teacher with high enthusiasm and a lot of passion for what she does.
He said he's proud of her for her actions. Students like Cervantes are thanking her, even as they try to forget the things they've seen.
I still have that image in my head, and I'm just trying to forget about it, but it probably won't stay on my mind for a long time.
The Teachers Union president said he's very proud of Megan Silverberger's actions today. If and when she speaks with us, we will share that with you. Live at Schultes Gospel Church in Marysville, Natasha Chen, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
The Tulalip tribal chairman joined with other local leaders outside Marysville City Hall to share his shock and grief this evening.
Sadly, we now experience what has become a national trend, and we as a society must address this issue. The fact that tribal members were involved makes it extremely hard. We're deeply saddened by this whole tragedy and why it would happen in our community. We can always say that we watch it on TV, but here it comes, walking in our door.
Herman Williams Sr. also issued a statement. It said in part, "These are our children. They are suffering and their lives will be forever changed. I ask everyone to pray for the children and families of those involved." Well, Governor Jay Inslee was among hundreds who packed a Marysville church tonight to mourn and to support their community. Cairo 7's Lindsay Sheldon was there with some of the students who escaped the cafeteria during the rampage. Lindsay.
Yeah, I spoke with Caitlin Hopp. She actually heard and saw those gunshots and then ran from the cafeteria. She was one of about 2,000 people that officials here estimate filled the sanctuary, the overflow room, the foyer, and even stood outside. There were tears and overwhelming grief tonight at the Grove Church after the deadly shooting at Marysville Pilchuck High School. Caitlin Hopp heard the gunshots behind her in the cafeteria and ran.
I'm hanging in there, but it was really sad to me.
They turned to God,
and you comfort our broken hearts tonight, God.
Asking him for peace and to save the 4 victims fighting to survive.
That you would do a miracle in their bodies, God, that they would live and not die.
Students from other schools shared their own fears.
Still very scared and looking for assurance that everything's okay.
It was something Governor Jay Inslee touched on after urging compassion for the families of Marysville and the Tulalip tribes.
In the upcoming days, besides wrapping our arms around these families, that we're going to be talking to our children to give them confidence to go to school. We need to tell our children they're not alone.
But the night at its core was about love.
It did help to know that there's a whole community out there that cares.
And a commitment to each other.
I saw a lot of my friends in there who were really heartbroken, and they came to me and hugged me and were crying a lot, and I just felt really bad and stuff, so I hugged him back and I said it's going to get better.
Now, there was a very special moment here that they asked the media to step out for, and of course we respected that, but you couldn't help but hear that music coming out of the church. Right before the pastor continued with his message, they all sang Amazing Grace. Reporting live in Marysville, I'm Lindsay Sheldon, Cairo 7 Eyewitness News.
It was